Without controversy. He said, great is the mystery of godliness. He said, God was manifest in the flesh. The word manifest there is the word phanero. And the word phanero means rendered apparent, made bare, made seeable. So Jesus was not just generated, he was made seeable. Because before now, 1 Timothy 6:16 said God cannot be seen. So when God was generated, he cannot remain spirit, because you still can't see him. So Jesus was God made seeable. He was the phanero of God. He was the expression, the seeable dimension of God. So he was the custodian of God. Then he was generated so that the dimensions that he carries can be put together in a sequence, and that sequence was rehearsed in God unto perfection. And when it was presented, he became the seeable, the renderable, the interactable dimensions of God. So Jesus becomes the stamp of God, because that word phanero also means stamp, the original of God. The way you see a document and there's a stamp on it, that this document is not a photocopy, this document is the original. That's what Jesus is, the rendered God, the expressed God, the visible God, the manifested God. You know, the reason people argue these things is because they are not given understanding. In case you don't know exegesis, one of these verses can show you that Jesus is God. Jesus is God rendered. Those of you who do what do you call it, all this graphic work, you know what I'm talking about, right? When you do your graphic work, you put everything in place. There's such a thing you call rendering, so that you can print it out. And when you print it, it has to be the original design. So Jesus is God's original design. He's the rendering of God. So when you see Jesus, there is nothing else about God that you will see anywhere. He is the totality of God put together and rendered. That's why the Bible speaking in Colossians 1:19 and 2:9, that he pleased the Father that in him should the fullness of the Godhead dwell bodily. The word bodily there is the rendering part. That he doesn't just carry the fullness of God. He already carries God's fullness when he was in his bosom. But that fullness that he carried in God's bosom needed to be rendered. And that rendered God needed to be seeable. So there was a need for the Christ to be manifested, so that God can be seen. And so this is what the apostles labor to teach. You know, because we learn this thing in English language, we are quoting it, but we don't know the weight. Imagine if somebody shows up and they tell you that design that you saw the engineers, all these robots they do nowadays, they tell you that that design that the engineers were trying to couple overnight, that's the rendering. You will appreciate it. How God sat together and decided to couple himself together and decide to make himself visible, so that when you see this visible image, you have seen the invisible God. This was what Jesus came to show us. This is the project of God for humanity. So the Bible said he is the first. That means this thing God did in Christ, he didn't stop in Christ. So if you don't understand it, you can't find yourself. The way you will find yourself is to know that this being I'm seeing is a product of divine ingenuity. It's a product of the intelligence of divinity. And he is not the only one. He has become a prototype for others to come. So Romans 8 verse 29, here's what the Bible said. I'm trying to show you something. We are men of God, not because we are preachers. We are men of God because we are coming from somewhere. And where we are coming from has a foundation. That foundation is Christ. He said, for whom he did foreknow, he said he also predestinated to be conformed to the image of the Son. So he has created the first prototype. Now he wants to mass produce. To be conformed to the image of the Son, that he might be the firstborn amongst many brethren.